And we're talking today with Kim Silver, who's the operations team lead for Fairy Tale Brownies. How are you doing, Kim?
Great. How are you doing today?
Very good, thanks. And what we're going to do is just take a little time to talk about what your and Fairy Tale Brownies experience is in seasonal peak planning. And so the first one we want to ask about is what are the peak shipping periods for Fairy Tale Brownies, and talk about the demand that you have during those.
The peak shipping periods for Fairy Tale Brownies typically fall for the Christmas season. It's the 2 weeks prior to the holiday. That is the heaviest shipping that we experience. Before any other holiday, it's usually the week prior to the holiday, but for Christmas, it's the 2 weeks prior. And we do probably about more than 50% of the annual shipping falls within those 2 weeks, so it's a pretty heavy 2-week period for us. All our team members are required to commit to overtime, working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. If it's not necessary, we don't work it, but we plan for it, and we run 24/7 during those 2 weeks, just shipping continually.
Okay, and what is your approach to seasonal peak planning, and what is generally the first step in that process?
We start seasonal peak planning actually when we are in the season prior. Every team has a notepad, a large notepad posted outside of their department, and as they're working through the season, they're always writing down ideas for improvements for the coming season. We find that it's best to identify those as you're actually in the season doing the work. When you get out of season, sometimes you forget what ideas you have for the coming season. So at the end of the peak season, we pull all those notepads together and compile departmental lists and immediately start working on improvements for the coming season. So essentially, we're working on seasons ahead of time, just trying to identify how we can make it smoother and how we can improve our processes for the coming season. Technically, when we start purchasing and actual production planning, that will start as soon as we get our projections. When we come out of season, we typically have an idea of what the coming year is going to look like projection-wise, and we can start planning from that aspect. But like I said, when we're in season, we're already planning for the coming season.
Okay, and what are some of the things that are maybe kind of particular to Fairy Tale Brownies that affects your peak planning process? You talked a little bit about your production schedule.
Yes, we're a little different, I guess, in the sense that we actually produce and manufacture what we're then building and shipping out the door for the season. So our production on the kitchen side, the bakery side, has to be coordinated directly with the gift building and what they're doing on the distribution side. So we work very closely on our scheduling and how we're producing, what we're producing, so that our shipping side of the business doesn't run out of product that they're building. We've got to stay in line with them. We sort of have to stay ahead of them so they don't run out of product. So our production side on the kitchen side in the bakery will actually start ramping up in July. That's when we bring on our production workers for the bakery, and then that's immediately followed about a month later by the shipping side, where they do all the pre-gift building and getting the projections built for the December.
Okay, and just looking back at the season that just wrapped in 2014, what were some of the primary things that you took away, you learned from 2014 that you can kind of bake into the process for 2015 and help to improve how you handle people?
I think one of the biggest things that we've learned is to project high and pull back if we need. What we've run into in the past is we project on the more conservative side, and then as we're getting closer to the holidays, we would see the projections start to fluctuate and change, and then we would start to increase. Well, we had a really difficult time on the production side catching up, essentially. We couldn't catch up because time was running out. So now what we've learned to do, and what worked out great for us, is we project on the high side. So we project on the high side and we pull back as we get into season if need be, or we can make adjustments more easily rather than trying to catch up. The other thing that we've done that's made a significant impact financially to the bottom line is better coordination on the gift building side with the actual kitchen production side. This last year, we changed some things around, the way we were producing, the way we did the production schedule, and we were able to actually save quite a bit of money on our off-site cold storage costs. We didn't have to send product away, then bring it back and build it. We just did better coordination and planning, working directly with the distribution side to make sure that we were in line with them on the production side in the kitchen. So we didn't have to send the product off-site. We saved over 58% on off-site cold storage costs. Our facility is not that big, and when we get into peak season, we do run into some storage issues, space issues. We do own the building we're in and plan to expand, but for those peak months out of the year, it can be pretty tight in here. So we really have to work together with the distribution side to make sure we're coordinated very closely, and we did a really great job. The teams did a really great job this last year in that planning, and we'll be able to bring that forward to this year as well.
Okay, and one other thing, in addition to the end of the year, you know, the December, Thanksgiving through the end of the year, or through Christmas, heavy peak season, you must have also have some heavy gift buying times like Mother's Day, like Valentine's Day. Is it the same kind of process, just scaled back? How do you deal with these kind of smaller spikes during the year?
The smaller spikes are easier to deal with because, of course, they are smaller. We don't need the staff that we typically do for the Christmas holiday season. So what we'll do for Valentine's Day, because that falls right after Christmas, we will keep a couple of our seasonal staff on board to just help get us through the Valentine's Day. And then as we get into Mother's Day, if we need to bring anybody back, we will. But for the most part, we're able to handle those smaller holidays on our own. And if we need, we'll keep some of the seasonal people over to help us on the production side as well as on the distribution side, should it be necessary. But those are easier to handle than the holidays in Christmas. Those are pretty heavy for us, and those take at least 6 months planning.
Right. So is it as extreme as, like, you know, December 26th, or is it after the New Year you actually start the next year's process, or?
We usually have a little downtime right after the holidays in December, maybe about 2 to 3 weeks. Once we hit February, which is the start of our new fiscal year, then we immediately start planning. Not all the teams are as heavily involved that early because it doesn't impact them right away. Our customer service team doesn't actually start their planning until we get much closer to the holidays. But on the production side and the distribution side, we do start planning as early as February. A lot of that has to do with our suppliers. I've got to start bringing in product from Europe. There's a lot of long lead times. Our packaging, if we're making any changes, some of the stuff that comes from overseas has to be planned in advance. We have the Chinese New Year's to deal with. So really, we do have to start planning that early. Right now, I've already started to secure ingredients for the coming season. They all already need my projections. So it starts earlier and earlier, it seems, every year.
Okay, great. So thanks a lot, Kim, for all that. And if you want to find out some more in-depth insights and trends on topics like seasonal peak planning, you can check out the Operations Summit, which is going to be held from April 14th to 16th in Louisville, Kentucky. And the show is going to have over 50 merchant speakers and more than 50 sessions covering all aspects of e-commerce and direct-to-consumer retail. So you can pick it out to Louisville. And Kim, thanks again very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
All righty.